If you haven't been here before, welcome. My name is Bailey Parker, and I am the Communications Director here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Cybersecurity can seem a little overwhelming, especially if you don't consider yourself really tech savvy, or even if you do, cybersecurity can still seem a little bit confusing. And we've tried to kind of break down cybersecurity into hopefully more digestible chunks, but hopefully we've provided in this presentation a better to understand way to start being more cyber secure. We know here at the department and in our partnerships with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and the FBI, that cybersecurity is key in keeping me and you safe from hackers, scammers, identity thieves, criminals, whatever you want to call them, and for keeping our information safe from things from direct attacks, so people who are directly calling us, emailing us, whatever it is, or the indirect attacks that we really don't have control over, things like security breaches. We don't have control over security breaches that happen to companies that we've shopped at or hospitals that we've happened to be to and they have our information. So cybersecurity is so important. Hopefully today we can go and learn some of these basics and you can start implementing these things. All right, so let's get into it. What is cybersecurity? So cybersecurity is really, if we're going to break it down into like a simple term, because this definition here is more not so simple. This is the actual definition: the art of protecting networks, devices, and data from unauthorized access or criminal use. Basically, it's about protecting your devices, your phones, your computers, your Wi-Fi, and anything that you're using from people getting unauthorized access and using them without your knowledge for fraud. And it's about ensuring that your information stays confidential and private. Why should you care about cybersecurity? Because and this may seem obvious to some people, but this is a question that I get often. When I give this presentation in person, sometimes the question I get is, well, there's all this information available online about me. Should I really care about cybersecurity? I mean, it's all available there. Should I really care about keeping my information private? The answer is yes, you should. You should care because it's not just about your name and your date of birth and your address. It's about all of the very sensitive personal identifying pieces of information about you. It's all categories of information. We want to protect all of that from theft and damage. This includes your personal health information. So there's PII, which is personal identifying information, and there's PHI, which is personal health information. And all of that information, that includes your social security numbers. This includes all of your health diagnoses. This also includes your insurance information, Medicare, Medicaid, insurance numbers, anything else that's in the insurance realm, explanation of benefits, anything that you've paid. It may also include your financial information, if you have credit cards on file. And then any other types of PII, so personal identifying information. I've already mentioned that social security number. It could be your home address. It could be your date of birth, your maiden name, your full name. It could be any number of things. Personal health information and PII together, I mean, that's your whole identity at the end of the day. When it comes to cybercrime, it's really any crime that's committed electronically. So it's anything that happens on a computer, on the internet, on an electronic device. So it could be a phone, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPad, it could be any type of electronic device. It doesn't necessarily have to be through the internet, but it usually is through internet connections because things are sent oftentimes through internet connections. So how do these attacks happen? So many different ways. Okay, so this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are probably the most common ways that they happen. Number one I have there is security breaches. The reason I mentioned this at the top is we're actually the state agency that takes breach notices for the state. So when a business in South Carolina or an agency, government agency, a school, whoever, has a security breach of over 1,000 individuals, they are required, and it's certain personal identifying information, they are required to report that to us. You can find that information on our website. If you go to consumer.sc.gov, there's a security breach reporting page there. And we also update that with the most recent security breaches too. So if you get a security breach notice, you can check. We try and update that as quickly as possible. It's updated at least once a month, but we've been updating it more quickly these days because there's so many security breaches coming in now, unfortunately. So if you get a security breach notice like I did about 4 weeks ago, and you're wondering, is this real? Is this not real? You could go to our webpage and cross-reference to see if it was legitimate. But the reason this is at the top is this is a very common way, if not one of the most common ways that attacks happen. And this is something that's totally out of a consumer's control, right? We are not in control of whether a business has a security breach or not. I mentioned that about 4 weeks ago, I got a security breach notice, and about, I think it was like 300,000. How many? I can't remember. It was a lot of South Carolinians who got this security breach notice, just like I did. And it was a healthcare organization that, or is an organization that was dealing with healthcare information for a number of healthcare organizations in South Carolina. And it was me, my husband, and my son's PII that had been breached in this security breach, along with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other South Carolinians' information. So this is something that I have no control over. And security breaches are happening, unfortunately, every day. And we know at the department, as we get more and more security breach notices, they're not slowing down. And it's something that we as a consumer, as much as we wish that these would stop, we as a consumer kind of have to take the driver's seat and say, okay, I have no control whether or not a security breach is going to happen to me. What can I do? Because I can't control it. What can I do to protect myself? We'll talk about that as we get toward the end of what can we put in place to actually protect ourselves. Tech repair scams. So, you get a pop-up on your computer that says, there's a virus or there's malware, and you click on it. Or somebody calls you and says your software needs to be updated and they need to get into your computer. No. Social media scams, online shopping, phishing, emails and texts, lost phones, stolen phones, weak passwords and security, hackings, and so many more. I mean, any way that a scammer that has intelligence in cybersecurity and hacking, they will use any weaknesses in your devices or even in your knowledge in this area to get into your devices. They'll use it. So phishing, what is phishing? I think at this point, you've probably heard of phishing and know, you're not going out to the lake in a boat to fish, but the pH phishing. So this is a way to obtain your username, your password, maybe your financial information like credit card numbers or any other type of personal identifying information. A lot of times it's coming in emails where they're trying to get you to click links and enter in information, or now it's commonly text messages. So they are sending you texts, acting like maybe a shipping company, maybe Amazon. I get those all the time saying your Amazon package has been delayed. Click here to find out why, or whatever it is. And they want you to click the links oftentimes. So what are the common phishing schemes? So they claim they've noticed suspicious activity or login attempts. This is very common from financial institutions. I've also gotten them from Amazon, accounts that I'm associated with, or companies that I'm associated with. So there's been suspicious activity in your bank account. That's scary, right? So we don't want anything to happen to our money, right? And so if we get an email that says all of a sudden there's suspicious activity on your account, you might click on the link. There's claims that there's problems with your account or your payment information. So, your payment information in your Netflix account has been denied. You need to click on the link to update your payment information. It says you must confirm your personal information. So something's wrong with your bank account or something's wrong with this account, so you need to confirm your identity. It says you're eligible for a government refund or other coupon for free stuff, because everybody loves free stuff, right? So this often happens with like grants or scholarships too. Kids can get into a lot of trouble with this. They get roped into scams like this. So they click on the links and put in a lot of their very sensitive personal identifying information to apply for government grants and scholarships that aren't real. They want you to click on a link to confirm login information or make a payment, or for businesses, sometimes it can look like a fake invoice. Here is an actual example of a phishing attempt. So this looks like it's coming from Bank of America. This is the vanity email, but if you would actually click on this, it's not coming from Bank of America. So it's from Comcast.net, okay? But the subject says notification of irregular activity. And it's not coming directly to you. It's going to undisclosed recipients, or sometimes it'll just look empty. It's not going to anybody. It's going, and what that usually means is it's going to a lot of different people, okay? They're sending it out to a ton of people. And then they've got the logo of Bank of America to make it seem more legitimate. A red flag here is, it says, dear member. This is a red flag for a number of reasons. It says would be capitalized. I don't think that's a red flag. What it should say is your name. Because if this was a notification of irregular activity on your specific account, they should know your name because it's your account. So they should be saying, dear Bailey, dear whoever. But then they're saying we detected unusual activity on your Bank of America debit card on this date. For your protection, please verify this activity. This is a common thing, right? You may have set up notifications on your card, your credit card, your debit card. So if you make a purchase over $100, you get a notification and you have to verify that purchase amount, right? So this is common. This can happen. so you can continue making debit card transactions without interruption. Please sign into your account at this www.bankofamerica.com. So what they want you to do is click on this link and then go to this website, which very well could look like the legitimate Bank of America website login page, which a lot of scammers are smart enough to make web pages that look very similar to real business web pages. You're going to enter in your login information and it's not going to go anywhere because it's not real. And then what you've done is you've given your bank login information to this scammer. What you do is, one, you never click on the link, but you hover. And when I say hover, you basically just put your mouse over the link. And what this right here, the little red arrow with this yellow box is showing you is when you hover over a link, it's going to bring up a box that actually shows you where the link is going. It's going to show you the true URL. And this is where it's actually going. It's not going to bankofamerica.com. It's going to bit.do/GHSDFHGSD. Yeah, no, I wouldn't trust that at all. So this is a true example of an email phishing attempt. Here is a text message phishing attempt. This was going around a lot during the pandemic. So someone who came in contact with you tested positive and has shown symptoms for COVID-19 and recommends you self-isolate or get tested. They want you to click on this, and then they're going to ask you to enter in information about yourself, and then your identity is going to be stolen. This is a social media phishing attempt. You've won a $1,000 Amazon gift card. This sounds amazing. And the chance to win anything, and people fall for all the time. And it's reserved just for you, Facebook user. The reason this is a red flag, number one, Facebook user. Very generic, unpersonalized phrasing. What they want you to do is click continue to claim your prize. Number two, enter the correct information on the next page to claim your prize. They're going to ask for way more information than you need to do. Number two, you have only this amount of time to claim your prize. The wording sounds urgent. It's time sensitive. That's always a huge red flag of a scam. So how can you protect yourselves from these types of cyber attacks? Those are just very simple. That's not an exhaustive list, obviously, of cyber attacks. Those are just some very simple examples of phishing attacks. But how can you protect yourselves from cyber attacks? So these are the cybersecurity basics when we're going over the very basics. So protecting your files and devices. Number one, you always need to be updating your software. Reason being, if your software is not updated on your phones, on your computers, whatever devices you're using, that unupdated software means that there are potential holes for hackers to get into. Updating software, the reason that companies are doing this a lot of times is they're patching up holes. It's security updates. So that way hackers can't get in to the sensitive areas. They're shoring things up. They're making things stronger. So you always want to make sure you're updating your software as quickly as possible when those software updates come up. Two-factor authentication. This is key. And for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, this is one of the top tips that they're telling the general public. What two-factor authentication is, and I'll go into more detail about this in a second, is it's when you have a phone or a computer or whatever device, and it's going to ask you for a passcode. Okay, it's going to say enter in your passcode. So you enter in your passcode, and then it's going to ask you for a second factor. So it's going to say, okay, you've entered in your password now. I just emailed you a PIN. Now I need that PIN. This is a common and if not standard way of doing security on financial accounts now, social media. Basically, everybody does this now. And oftentimes you have to enable this on your accounts. So if you have not enabled this on your social media, on your financial accounts, on your online bank accounts, your credit card accounts, please do so. This is considered key. An example would be, I don't remember how long ago this was, but I got an email in my Gmail that said, hey, here's your PIN to your Gmail. You just tried to log in, so here's your PIN. And I was like, I didn't just try and log in. I'm just at work. And so somebody had my password to my Gmail, was able to try and log in, but because I had second factor authentication where it sent me a PIN to try and log in, they weren't able to get in. If I hadn't have had that set up, they would have been able to get into my email and see everything, possibly get into other accounts because of that, do whatever they wanted. But because I had set that two-factor set up, they weren't able to. That also sent me a message to say, oh shoot, I need to change my password, right? They have my password. I now need to go change my password. That person, it also let me know that person was in Spain, okay? So this can happen anywhere. Securing your files. This means if you don't have passwords on your devices, your phones, your computers, you need to password protect every single one of your devices. So simply putting passwords on your devices, you should not be walking around with a phone that has, you probably, if you're using a smartphone, you probably have your credit card company app on here, right? You're probably doing mobile banking. You have your email set up on there. You're text messaging people. Maybe you have Cash App or Venmo on there. If you do not have a password on your phone, please, 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 I beg of you, set up a password. You don't want somebody to just be able to walk up to your phone that has all of your personal identifying information in it and just be able to open it up with no other thought. So when you're requiring these passwords, what should these passwords be? Strong, preferably. Never use the same password on all of your accounts. Don't be my parents from, just 3 years ago and use the same password for 10 years. And then they finally learned 3 years ago when somebody found out that one password and logged into all of their accounts. Yeah, that's what happens when you use the same password for all of your accounts, because scammers know that people are more likely to use the same same password over and over and over for their accounts because it's easy to remember, right? So they'll try that same password for all of your accounts and see what works. And a lot of times it does because we're lazy and we don't change the password. So don't be, and I'm calling my parents out. I've had to talk to them, and they've since changed their passwords, and I've helped them out with that. So they're better people now. We've learned our lesson. But you don't want to do that because it's just so easy to get into all of the accounts. Use a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Now, this last tip, it's an old tip. It was resetting your password every 60 days. Now, the FBI has kind of updated this advice a little bit. And I would say the cybersecurity, CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, which is a federal agency here in the United States, they also back this and say, you don't necessarily need to be resetting your passwords every 60 to 90 days, as long as your passwords are super strong. So you need to have very long passwords that have uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Your passwords all need to be different from each other. They all need to be different from each other. And people look at me and they say, Bailey, how do I do that? How do I make the passwords different from each other? How do I remember all those? Well, guys, the FBI and the CIA and CISA all say the same thing. Password managers. They all recommend these now. So I, in the chat, put a link to the National Cybersecurity Alliance's website, which CISA is a member of, so it's good to go. It's staysafeonline.org, and it's their whole page about password managers. So you should have a link to that in the chat from me. And it's a whole page about password managers, and they even have some examples of password managers. What password managers will do for you is they even suggest passwords sometimes. They'll create passwords, but it will give you an app. You can use them on computers, but they're more common on mobile devices. You can download them. Some of them you pay for, but a lot of them are free. And it's an application that you can use, a software that you can use to save your passwords in. Now, I hear a lot of hesitation from people of saying, well, how is that any different than me just writing down my passwords on a piece of paper? It's a little different because somebody could just break in and steal that piece of paper off of your desk, or steal that sticky note off of your computer screen. And if you're using a password on your device, they can't just get into those. Password managers are also encrypted. That whole web page explains password managers. This is the way to make your password strong, okay? Also, encryption. You don't need to know the ins and outs of encryption. This is where people get really confused, even me. I'm not a cybersecurity expert in any way, shape, or form. I'm not an encryption expert. You don't need to know necessarily how encryption works. What encryption is, though, it's protecting your devices and protecting your information when it's sent over networks, so it can't be read by outsiders. So an example, this little picture at the bottom, when you're entering in your payment information on Amazon, perhaps, Amazon is an encrypted website. And when you're entering in your payment information, don't save your information. Don't ever save your payment information into Amazon. But if you're entering in your payment information and you hit purchase, when that information is going through the, going through the Wi-Fi, going through the network, it's being encrypted and into ciphertext. And what that means is it's all being jumbled. Say, this was your credit card number, the hello. It's being encrypted into ciphertext. So if somebody were in that network looking in that, say there's a hacker in there looking at all the information traveling through that network, they're not going to be able to read your information because it's encrypted. It's just going to look like mumbo jumbo in this ciphertext here, okay? So that's why you always want to make sure that you're on networks that are encrypted. You don't need to understand how encryption works, but you always want to be on networks that are encrypted. You always want to make sure you're on networks that have passwords. You always want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is secure. So this is the next slide. You always want to make sure that your home router, if you're using Wi-Fi, change the default name, make a unique password for it. And if you don't know about an encryption and you don't know much about your home router, call your servicer. Call your Wi-Fi company, your internet company, and ask them, is my router encrypted? What do I need to know about this? How secure is it? Same thing goes for the network firewall. Ask the company about it if you don't know much about it. A firewall is hardware or software that protects and controls the traffic going in and out of your router. And oftentimes your router for your internet has a firewall option. If you don't know if your router for your internet in your home has this option, call your internet company and ask. They'll know, because oftentimes you're renting it from them, and they'll know, okay? If it does have an option, ask them how to enable it if it's not already enabled. This is where we get a little complicated too. Again, this is where you ask your internet company. This is a standard in internet connections. You want to make sure all the old internet connections, you don't want to be using any old internet connections that are not WPA2 or WPA3. You may be saying, Bailey, this is all mumbo jumbo to me. I get it. I understand. And it's kind of mumbo jumbo to me too at this point. I remember calling my internet company and saying, hey, we have a pretty old router at this point, and it's kind of slow. Do you know what encryption it has? Is it WPA2 or WPA3? And they looked it up for me, and they're like, actually, you're right. It is older, and it's not WPA2, WPA3. We're going to send you over a new one. That was the easiest conversation of my life. Okay, didn't cost us anything, right? Because they just needed to update it for us. And so that's a conversation you can just have with your internet company. Obviously, make sure you ask them, like, is this going to cost me anything to upgrade? Or are you just going to update this because it needed to be updated? And if you're going to buy your own router, make sure that you're looking in the information for WPA2 or WPA3. It'll be there in the information. And if you've got a bunch of old devices laying around, make sure they're not connected to Wi-Fi. This is an easy way for hackers to get in, because old devices don't have updated software, right? And they're going to get into your old devices. And if you had old apps in there with your information in it, then they're going to get in and get whatever information they can from that old device. Please just be very careful about what you're putting online. Again, I hear from people, well, my information's all online anyways. I'm not really worried about it. Like, I can put whatever out on the internet because my identity's already on the internet. I get that to a certain extent. But we shouldn't just be putting everything out there, because the more that's out there, the more it's just kind of feeding these identity thieves. Please check your social media profiles. We don't need your date of birth out there for everybody. I know it's really nice to get those birthday wishes every single year, but you can hide your date of birth on your social media profiles. You don't need to be sharing everything. And I always say this too, because people are more likely to make their passwords about their personal life. So your children's names, your anniversaries, your dates of birth, everything like that. And scammers will look at your social media profiles to see your posts, because you're posting about your life. You're posting about your dog's names, your anniversaries, your kids' names. And then they use that information to guess your passwords. So just think about that as you're posting. Again, think about as you're posting, they're using this information to try and guess your passwords, your security questions, and really anything to steal your identity. And please beware of these free Wi-Fi hotspots. Don't use public Wi-Fi if you can't. Public Wi-Fi networks are not secure, which means anyone can see into that network if they have any sort of knowledge into how to get into Wi-Fi networks. So if you're like all of a sudden decided to go to Starbucks and do your taxes, don't do that. That's just a bad idea. Because if you're entering in all your tax information at Starbucks on an unprotected network, and somebody had enough know-how to get into that network, they see everything you're doing, okay? And consider using a virtual private network or a personal or mobile hotspot. When you're shopping and surfing online, please do not use a debit card when shopping online. Reason being, it's a direct line into your checking account where your actual money is. Credit cards have more insurance behind them, and as much as we would love to think that credit cards are our money, it's not our money. And you are much more likely to get that money back if it's a fraudulent purchase on that credit card, okay? If reported within a certain period of time. The reporting times on debit cards are much more limited than there are on credit cards. So the consumer protections for credit cards are much wider. So please use a credit card when shopping online. Monitor your statements regularly. We're getting into the holiday season and scammers love this time of year because they know you're probably shopping more often. And what they'll try and do is they'll try and kind of sneak in some purchases here and there on your cards and hope you don't notice because you're purchasing more often. Please check your accounts for unauthorized activity. Set up alerts so that if your credit card or debit cards are used, you'll receive those alerts. And do your homework. Just because you see a good deal doesn't mean it's real. The saying is, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And I know we're getting into the holiday season and everybody's looking for a good deal. Everybody's looking to save a buck. If it is a deep, deep discount, I would not trust that. Read reviews, look for a physical location, any customer service info, and call the merchant to see if you can confirm that they're real, because it's so easy to fake a website these days. So easy. And pay attention to the website's URL. So if there's no S after the HTTP, do not shop there. It's just a guarantee, don't shop there. Because the S after the HTTP means it's a secure website. That means they paid extra money to encrypt their website. Now, that does not mean that your information can't be stolen from that website or your account can't be hacked, but it means if you're putting in your payment information, your information's at least being encrypted as it goes through the network. But yeah, definitely don't put your payment information into an unsecure website. And if a merchant's requesting more information than you feel comfortable with, don't shop there. It's as simple as that. No one should be requesting your social security number. No one should be requesting super private information. And you only need to fill out required fields at checkout, and don't save your payment information in profiles. That's a surefire way for somebody to hack into your account. And if you've got your payment information saved in there, oh, they're going to go on a shopping spree. So how can you protect yourself? Well, if you have been the victim, number one, who should you contact? So online crime specifically. The Internet Crime Complaint Center is IC3, the FBI. So if you've been the victim of an online or internet-enabled crime, you need to go to the FBI IC3. You can do this all online. If you've been the victim of a phishing scam specifically, so yes, that's an online crime, but this is specifically through email. The National Cybersecurity Communications and Integration Center is a phishing report. You can actually just directly email your phishing email to them through this email, or text them too. And then if you've been the victim of identity theft or a general scam, you call us. Please check your credit report. This is how you find out if you've been a victim of identity theft, and you need to be doing this anyways for your financial health. You can now get one free credit report from each of the credit reporting agencies every week, indefinitely. They just are going to continue to do this. They started this at the beginning of the pandemic, and they were like, they kept extending it. They extended it to the end of 2023, and now they're just like, well, we'll just keep doing it. And there's like no end. So great. I don't think you need to check it every week. but you can if you wanted to. This is the only place I'm going to tell you to go to. It's authorized by federal law to not save your information or sell your information, okay? Other companies may sell your information if you read the terms and conditions. Fraud alerts, it's free, lasts a year, alerts a business viewing your report to take extra steps to verify your identity, okay? One call, that's all. You just have to call one of the credit reporting agencies to place it, and they'll talk to each other, and it'll be placed on all three of them. The freeze, I call this the Big Daddy. It's free to place or lift. It stops anyone from accessing your credit report, and that includes yourself. You can still look at it. You just can't open up new lines of credit in your name. This is a fantastic option if you're not looking up to open up any new lines of credit anytime soon. You can thaw it for a period of time. So if you want to open up a credit card or get a new loan, you can thaw it for 90 days and then it'll refreeze. You'll get pins from each of the credit reporting agencies, and it's a fantastic option. Honestly, I think this is the best option to prevent identity theft. It is free. What I want you to take away from this, we're at the very base level here, okay? And we're going to have 3 more presentations throughout the month of October going over cybersecurity. But the main takeaway I want you to have is no security method is 100% safe. You should be combining as many security measures on your personal information as possible. Just because you follow the recommendations for a strong password doesn't mean you should forget the rest. Every method should be used together. The way I think of it is like layers of armor, right? 1 layer of armor is great. Okay, you've got a layer of armor. But 2 layers of armor is like, wow, okay, I got some chainmail and I got some armor. Okay, that's better. So the more security measures, the higher the protection. So the more layers of armor, the more protected you are. No security measure is 100% safe, but the more security measures you're taking, the better. And again, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we'll see you at our future cybersecurity webinars coming up, because we've got plenty of stuff to cover this Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You guys have a fantastic Wednesday, and we will see you at our upcoming webinars. Bye.